right, you ready to do this? We're back. We're back. Oh, it's been a busy day today. First though, in the last hour, I saw this pop up as I was getting back, that they have found remains of Phoebe Bishop, and that's breaking in the last hour or so. I wish I could have been here for it, but I was traveling at the time. Yeah, here you go. Phoebe Bishop, human remains found in search for Phoebe Bishop's body after housemates were charged with murder. Not really the. Well, I mean, what else? What else news were we going to get after a murder charge? I mean, not going to be like, oh my god, someone's alive. Like that's not going to happen. So, I mean, disappointing at the end of it. Really, not what we were hoping for, but at least she will be able to go home after they do the medical exam and evidence things and stuff like that. They will be able to take her home and put her to rest. So it is quite sad. A real sad ending to the Phoebe Bishop missing person investigation. But they're saying here the remains of missing teenager Phoebe Bishop are believed to have been found hours after her two housemates face court on murder charges. Guys, hold on. My cat is here. Hold on, guys. Sorry, my female cat likes to go and steal the male cat's food, and the male cat just lets her. Like, he's just like, "Oh, you want my food? Sure, you can have it." And he ends up not getting any food, and then he whinges all night that he's hungry, and we're like, "You coulda just shooed her away." He's like, "No, no, I'm a friendly cat. I wanna feed my sister." He's always done that since he was a kitten. We don't understand why. It's bizarre. But yeah, here you go. They're saying police were searching in an area close to that Goodnight Scrub National Park near Gingin in Queensland when they found human remains around 2:30 p.m. today. Those remains are yet to be formally identified, but investigators are talking to the family of the missing teen. Crime scene has been established and forensic examinations are ongoing. Well, that all came together very quickly. I don't know what the straw that broke the camel's back here is. I'm guessing eventually we will find out what that was. I'm guessing we will, because something changed in under 24 hours. The police were sort of like, "Oh, we don't know what's going on," and then all of a sudden they were like, "Yeah, yeah, we got everything. We know where the body is. We know who did it. We've arrested people." So something changed, and at some point we will find out. I'm sure. Let me check here. Yeah, at some point we'll find out, I am sure. By the way, I had a donation come in after I finished the last show, and I feel bad because it must have come in just as I hit the end button, and I feel terrible. But it was from our new friend, Squinting Cat. Squinting Cat, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That is very kind of you to support the channel. Thank you. Yeah, a lot of hours go into this channel. All right. That's about all the information we're going to get on Phoebe tonight. I don't expect that we'll get too much more. I wouldn't think so anyway. Now it's going to go to a medical examiner, or what we call in Australia a coroner, and the coroner will take over now that they've found a body. So the body will go to the coroner. They'll do the medical examination. They'll find out what killed her, what happened, what injuries, all that type of stuff. And then the crime scene gets handed over to forensic tech. Yeah, they catalog and bag everything, and then yeah, sort of how it works. But that's probably all we're going to get for today. I wouldn't think we're going to get too much more about. If it happened at 2:30 and we're only just finding out now, it sounds like they tried to drop the news very late on a Friday afternoon so it wouldn't hit the media cycle, but it still did. It's one of the biggest cases in the country at the moment. So they tried, but it didn't look like they actually succeeded in it. Yeah, so Rory, hey, leave him. See? Leave his food alone. Rory, she's such a pest. She like stalks him and like will hide behind things and watch him eat. And then she like pushes him out of the way and eats his food. Rory, oi, didn't Dad give you enough food? I gave you heaps. Greedy cat. She's a very greedy cat, that one. Aren't you, Rory? All right. All right. So we have some notes we were supposed to go over today. Um, as you know, Fridays are not a super long day, so I'll take you through what I have, and we'll talk about it. And let me load it up. Let me get there. All right, let's go up here. All right. So, all right, all right. All right, Carolina. Hey, good to see you, my friend. How are you? Hope you're doing well. All right, we can wait. We can wait a couple minutes for Carolina to boot up her TV. Um, so how are you guys going? Busy week? Do you have a long weekend where you are? You having fun out there? Do you like true crime? What about trials? Do you like trials? Do you like Erin Patterson notes? Is that why you're here? It is? Oh, that's interesting. I wonder why. I wonder why. All right, Carolina, we'll wait for you. We'll wait for you so you don't have to backtrack through everything. And we'll get going. So yeah, I'll give you a brief outline. So today was more of that cross examination from uh, Dr. Nanette Rogers, SC, and I wouldn't be expecting. I don't think that finished today. I think there's still more to go. All right. While she's doing that, I'm going to go make sure my cat doesn't eat the other cat's food. Hold on. All right. Here we go. Oh, okay. By the way, we didn't play the intro, so we're going to play the intro before I start the notes. Here you go. It's a subjudice contempt intro that we have to play now. So this basically tells you that in the chat, you can't give me any theories. You can't tell me who you think is what you think is who, and who might be getting what or X, Y, Z. It's, yeah, you can't associate anything like that. It's just, it won't get you in trouble. It'll get Ping in trouble. You know, they'll come after me, not you. They'll just email me and be like, "We're reporting it to the judge. Have fun with that." And I'll be like, "What? I didn't type it. They typed it." And they'll be like, "Well, it's your channel." And I'll be like, "Oh." So, thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. You ready to go? All right. All right. Caroline is ready to go. Okay, so we're going to start off at the top here. And one of the things that they talk about here are these messages. We've heard about them a few times. They're these group messages between Gail, Don, uh, their son, Simon, and Erin Patterson. And they're trying to ask about sort of what the meanings are in here. And they say here, what are you asking for in these messages? And they say that there's messages, signal messages between Don, Gale, and Simon. And they ask this question, what are they about? And they're saying here, is it about getting Simon to pay half of the school fees? And she says, no, I wasn't asking them to get him to do that. And they're saying that is what happened. And they say, you agreed in one of those messages, you said you wanted Don and Gail to encourage Simon to do the right thing by his children. Agree? Erin says she does agree. Nanette Rogers says, but you said, I don't understand that phrase. That is, do the right thing by his children. Could that be about school fees? That was your evidence yesterday. And that's what happened. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, so they're saying here, can you read out this message? It says, thanks, Don. I understand your position that you and Gail don't want to get involved in certain aspects of these difficulties as it is uncomfortable and awkward. That's unfortunate, but it's just a fact in situations like this. I respect your position, but I will continue to put messages in here on matters which I think are significant and for which I think Simon needs accountability for the difficulty he is causing me. I would hope that you, as his parents, would be concerned that he is making decisions that are in the interest of his children and just not operating from a place of angry with me. To that end, or anger, I will relay here further communication about the children's schooling, as that is a very big issue. I've had a number of conversations with their school, Centrelink, and CSA about this and would like to report back. Simon seems to be under the misapprehension that a child support assessment covers every expense for the children under the sun. That's just not the case. It covers basic care and basic schooling, including a public school education. If both parents want their children to attend a private school, then they must make a private agreement between them. So, yeah. And they say one parent cannot force the other to cover 100% if they both want their children to attend a school. So our choice is to either tell their school we will be responsible for 50% of the account. If Simon doesn't want to do that and wants me to be responsible for 100%, then my options are to either take the children out of that school or seek a court order requesting Simon pay 50%, which is likely to be successful as there is a long history and evidence that he wanted the children to go to that school and has been supportive of their enrollment for years. And they say the school finance department sent an email asking us to agree to a percentage between us so they can send a split account. We need to give them an agreed decision. And then they ask her, do you agree that the schooling was a significant matter and a big issue in the message that you sent? Erin says, I do. And then Nanette says, that's why you sent this message to Don and Gail, correct? And Erin says, well, I did send them the message, and I was concerned about the schooling, yes. Nanette says, you are clearly concerned about the school fees. Erin replies she was. And she says, that was one thing I was concerned about. And they say, and the payment? She said, yes. And she says, that's true. They're saying here, Nanette says, so do you still seriously dispute that you were essentially asking Don and Gail to get Simon to pay half the school fees? She says, I don't think that's what I'm communicating. She says, then if I'm communicating the wrong thing to you, I need to be clearer. So she's saying that she doesn't think that's what is going on in that message. They're saying here, Don declined to get involved in that issue, and correct. And she says he declined to get involved in the way I asked. Yes. And Nanette Rogers says, what was the way you asked? And she says that I wanted them to help mediate the communication between us. And they say here, so they ask her to go back to the photo, and they're saying in that message, they're basically asking her in that message, are you saying in that message that this is what you need help with, assisting in communication? And Erin says, I don't think that's in that message. No. And then they say, or mediation. She says, I don't think that's in that message. No. I suggest to you, and then Nanette Rogers says, I suggest to you that they were seeking to get Don and Gail, that you were seeking to get Don and Gail to influence Simon to pay half the school fees. Agree or disagree? She says, I was trying to ask Don and Gail to help Simon and I communicate about this better. Um, so she eventually answers no to that question. So, and they say, and Don declined to get involved in the situation. Correct. And she says, I don't agree with that. No, I need you to be more precise about what you're saying he declined to do. And they're saying here, yeah, they're just asking you to please reply to that question, like why can't you answer it? And she ends up answering, he said he didn't want to adjudicate on the issue, is my understanding. And then they ask her to continue about what this means. And she says, but I was not asking him to adjudicate between us. And then they ask her again, so he declined to get involved, correct? And she says, sure, okay. And they say, and I suggest that you were angry with Don and Gail's response. And she says, no, I wasn't angry with them. All right. Yeah. Sorry, guys. There's something here that I have to move down from. Hold on. Okay. So they continue here, and they're talking about something that relates to this. And they're talking about a Facebook message that Erin sent on the 6th of December, 2022 at 10:19 a.m. And she confirms that she sent that message. And Nanette says, you're recounting that message about Simon's dad, Don, contacting you. And she says, yes. And then they said, at the end of that message, you say, this family, I swear to fucking God. And Erin says, I did write that. And they say, this expressed your true feelings about Don Patterson and Gail Patterson, didn't it? And she says, no. Nanette says, I suggest you're wrong about that. And she says, no, I'm not wrong. And they say here, can you look at the message to your Facebook friends? And it says, I said to him about 50 times yesterday, I didn't want them to adjudicate. And that is a reference to Don. Is that correct? And Erin says, yes, it is. The next bit says, nobody listens to me. At least I know they're a lost cause. Erin says in her reply, I did write that. And they ask her if she sent it at 10:27 a.m. She says, I did. And again, they're saying, this is how you expressed how you truly felt about Don and Gail, that they were a lost cause. Agree or disagree? Erin says, disagree. The next message at 6:12, at below that 6:12, at 10:38 a.m., sent to you on Facebook Messenger. And the first line of it reads, I wonder if they've got any capacity for self reflection at all. You sent that. Erin said, I did. I sent the whole message. They ask her if she needs to read the rest of it, and she says, no. They ask, do you agree that you are critical of Simon Patterson in that message? And she says, I was. They say, do you agree that you were uh, sheeting some of his behavior back to his parents? So basically mimicking what he was doing to her. It says, it does look like that I did that, yes. They show her another one and it says, Don rang me last night to say he thought there was a solution to all of this if Simon and I get together and try and pray, talk and pray together. Then there's two emojis which she disputed in other evidence that are eye rolling emojis. And Erin says, I do dispute that. And they say correct. And they say a little bit further down, Don messaged to say he and Gail don't want to get involved in the financial things, but just hope that we pray for the kids. And again, there's an emoji that Erin says is not an eye rolling eye rolling emoji. Erin says that's correct. They say further down it says that's when Don said they tried to talk to him, that is Simon, but he refused to talk about it, so they're staying out of it, but want us to pray together. She continues in this message saying, I'm sick of this shit. I want nothing to do with them. And they ask her if this is correct. And she says, I did write that message. And she she continues in this message. I thought his parents would want him to do the right thing, but it seems they're concerned about not wanting to feel uncomfortable and not wanting to get involved in their son's personal matters are overriding that. So fuck them or fuck M. And she says, I did write that. And they ask, you wrote that? And she said, I did. They say, that's what you thought about Don and Gail and Don, correct? Fuck them. And Erin replies, I wrote that. I was venting. I was frustrated, but I regret writing it. I'm ashamed I wrote that. Nanette Rogers again suggests that these are her true feelings about her thoughts about Gail and Don. Again, Erin disagrees with that notion. And they say, and you weren't venting. So they're saying that's just your true feelings and you weren't actually venting. Erin says, I was venting. Nanette Rogers continues and says, these are true feelings that persisted through July 2023, correct? But Erin says, incorrect. And they say, and then continues into August. And she says, no. So she's defiant. She's like, no. And they ask her to look at another one. Another message, this time dated 7th of December 2022 at 11:20 a.m. And it reads, his parents sent me a message yesterday afternoon, and Simon sent me one last night, but I've read neither, and I don't think I will. I don't want to hear it. Simon will just be horrible and be gaslighting and abusive, and it'll ruin my day. And his parents' message will be more weasel words about not wanting to get involved. They ask her, did you write that message? Those words? And she said, I did. And they say here, I suggest again that you were angry. They did not take your side against Simon, correct or incorrect. And she says, no, I wasn't angry, but I was frustrated and hurt. And they say, you were frustrated and hurt when you wrote the previous message of fuck 'em. And she says, yeah, I was, but not angry. And she says, no. And she says, Nanette Rogers says, I suggest you were telling your online friends your true views of your in laws, correct or incorrect. She says, incorrect. And they say, can you read the next message for me? And it's his mom was horrified I had claimed child support. And Erin says, yes. Why isn't she horrified her son is such a deadbeat that I had no choice but to claim? That's the message you sent. And Erin replies, I did. Nanette goes on to suggest that Erin was unhappy with Gail's response about claiming child support at this point. And Erin replies, I don't know if I was happy or unhappy. I mean, clearly I wasn't happy, but I don't think unhappy is the right way to put it either. I was frustrated, I think. Nanette goes, and hurt? She says, I don't think hurt is reflected in the message. I was frustrated. I was hurt about a lot of things. Yeah, I was. And they say here, in previous evidence heard by one of the Facebook friends, one of the ladies said, you painted Simon Patterson as a father who was coercive. Do you remember that person giving that evidence? And she says, yeah, I do. And they say, who disagreed with you a lot. You heard her say that? And Erin says, I did. And in particular, around some following up of medical issues if one of the children were not well. And she says, yeah, I did say that. Nanette continues and says, she said you never seemed happy with his follow up and his commitment to what was happening. And Erin says, yes, she did say that. And they say, what was the evidence of consistent with what you had told about Simon? She says, no. And it says here, firstly, her evidence was that you painted Simon as a father who was coercive. Um, agree that you told that witness that, agree or disagree? Erin says, disagree. That witness also said that you told Simon disagreed with you a lot, and in particular around some of the following up medical issues if one of the kids was not well. Did you tell her that or not? Erin says, no. Did you tell her that you were never happy or seemed happy with his follow up or his commitment to what was happening? Erin says, I'm not sure what she's referring to there. Follow up about what? I don't know what she's talking about. Nanette Rogers says, "Do you agree that you posted that Simon was not a good father?" And she says, "Posted where? Do you mean in the Facebook group I was in with the witness?" Nanette writes, "Yes." And then Erin replies, "No, I don't agree with that." And then they say here, that another Facebook friend, her evidence is this, that you posted on the Facebook group that Simon wasn't a nice person. You heard her give that evidence. And they're saying here, Erin replies, I definitely discussed my relationship with Simon in the private chat group. I don't remember saying he wasn't a very nice person. Nanette says, well, that was the evidence that witness gave in this trial. And Erin says she did give that, yeah. And they're saying, did you say it on a post that witness read? And Erin says, I don't know if I did or didn't. I might have. I might have said that in the private chat group. I don't know. And they say that witness also gave evidence that you weren't happy with Simon's cleanliness. And she says, that's true. And then they say, you heard her say that. And she says, yes. Nanette says, is that the truth that you told her or that you posted? Erin says, yes, it is true because I had spent 2 weeks cleaning his house at one point. Danny, the witness also said that you didn't want the kids to sleep over there at night because you weren't happy with the way Simon lived. And she replies, "That's true." So let me move down here. So they move on to a different point of evidence, and they say, "Did you tell Katrina Cripps and Naomi Schroeder that Simon Patterson had become nasty towards you after you claimed child support? That was the evidence of Miss Cripps." And Erin says, yeah, I think I did say that, yes. Yeah, just let me move down a little bit. All right. So they ask here about Simon's evidence that he gave in week 1. And it says, so you were inviting Don and Gail and Heather and Ian and Simon to lunch. So this is Simon recounting the conversation that he had with you. And she says, yep. Nanette says, so you told him you were inviting Don, Gail, and Heather and Ian and to lunch to discuss that topic. And she says, oh no, that's not what I said to him. And they say, so did you tell him that you were inviting his parents and Heather and Ian and him to lunch? Erin says, I told him that I had already invited Ian, Heather, and Don and Gail, and I invited him as well. Yes. Nanette says, but you disputed that you said to Simon to discuss that topic. That is the important medical news. And she says, yes. Nanette says that you wanted advice on how to break that to the children. And Erin says that wasn't the purpose of the lunch or the purpose of the invitation to the lunch. Simon's evidence is that you said to him that you were inviting his parents and Ian and Heather to lunch to discuss important medical news, that you wanted some advice on how to break it to the children. And she says, yes. And they say, that's what I'm asking you about previously. Erin says, he did say that, but I did not say that to him. They say, Nanette says, did you ask him if he'd be able to come on the 29th of July, 2023? And she says, I did. And she says, I did invite him to the lunch. Yes, that is true. And they say that was Simon's evidence that you did say to him you did say to him to come to the lunch on the 29th. And she says that is true. Nanette says he also said you were keen for the lunch to not be with the kids. And she gave a very non-verbal, almost non-verbal reply to that, just a like that. And they ask her, you heard him say that? And she said, I did. They ask her, did you say that to Simon or not? And she says, I did not. They say Simon's evidence was that he said he would attend the lunch and you agreed. And she says he did. They say Simon's evidence further was that you had already invited his parents and Heather and Ian. And she says that's correct. And that they were going to go to the lunch. And she says, yes, that is correct. And they say, so they ask her here, I suggest to you that you thought Simon would be more likely to accept the invitation if he knew that his parents and Ian and Heather were also attending. Agree or disagree? Erin says, I would disagree with that. Nanette says, I suggest that you did. Here. They're saying here, you deny saying that you told Simon you had some important medical news, that you wanted some advice on how to break to the kids. Is that correct? Erin says, that's correct. Nanette says, so you flatly deny that, do you? And she says, I deny that. Nanette says, I suggest you told him you had a medical issue to encourage him to attend. Correct or incorrect? Erin says, no, incorrect. Nanette says, I suggest this is also your excuse for why the children would not be present at the lunch. And I assume that you disagree with that. Erin says, I do disagree with that. Nanette says, I suggest that in fact you did not want the children to be present for the lunch because you wanted to ensure there was no way they could eat the meal you were planning to serve to your lunch guests on the 29th of July. Erin replies, no, that's not true. And so they take her to another piece of evidence from Simon Patterson. Hold on, guys. Why is our chat looking like this? What's going on? No, we're not watching Laurie Vallow's opening statement. What's going on with this thing? Here, you know what? Yeah, I'm just going to delete all this crap. All right. There we go. There you go. Just so people know. All right. Hey, Betty C. Thank you. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Hopefully people will be able to see in the morning. Thanks for the super sticker, by the way. I appreciate that. These trials are just immense amounts of work. I think when I first went into this, I never thought it would be like this amount of work, and it's like 15-hour days to like go to court, produce all the crap, make the shows, edit all the notes, get stuff done. But hey, that's content creation for you, I guess. I guess that's how the magic happens. But so I hope you're all enjoying it. I promise you ain't getting There is no one giving you this type of information, no one on YouTube, because no one has access to it. Uh, Ping does, but I have to be very careful with what I report. That's why sometimes it seems very bland and vanilla and not very Ping-like, but that's a responsibility I have to the court. So, and I don't want to get kicked out of the courtroom. I want to keep going to trials. So I don't want to piss anyone off. All right. So this message is from Simon Patterson to Erin on the 28th of July, 2023 at 6:54 p.m. And Erin says, yes. And it says, sorry, I feel too uncomfortable about coming to lunch with you, Mum, Dad, Heather, and Ian tomorrow, but I'm happy to talk about your health and implications of that at another time. If you'd like to discuss on the phone, just let me know. Erin says, he did say that. Nanette says, I suggest that the words in his message, I'm happy to talk about your health and implications of that, is a direct reference to you telling him on the 16th of July that you had some important medical news. Erin says, I disagree. And it says here, you responded to that message. It's the blue message. Can you read it? And it was sent on the same evening at 6:59 p.m. And it says, sorry, uh, yeah, it says you may not be able to host. So she replied to that message of him saying he couldn't come, and it said that she may not be able to host a lunch like this for some time. And Erin says, I did say that. Nanette says, I suggest you wrote that and use those words to make it seem like the medical issue was the reason, correct or incorrect. And yeah, so this is the message in whole. That's really disappointing. I've spent many hours this week preparing the lunch for tomorrow, which has been exhausting in the light of the issues I'm facing, and a small fortune on beef I fillet to make beef Wellingtons because I wanted it to be a special meal. As I may not be able to host a lunch like this for some time, it's important to me that you're all there tomorrow and that I can have the conversations that I need to have. I hope you'll change your mind. Your parents and Heather and Ian are coming at 12:30. I hope to see you there. And Nanette says, I suggest that you are using that phrase to refer to medical issues that you told him about on the 16th of July. Erin says, yeah, I did. I did tell him on the 16th of July that I wanted to discuss some medical stuff at the lunch. That is true. But I did not say to him, serious, important medical news to break to the kids. And that's the purpose of the lunch. Nanette says, so when I asked you a little earlier, did you say to him that you had some important medical news that you wanted some advice on? What was it about that you disagreed on? And Erin replies, important. That it said it was important, and that I said I wanted advice on it and how to break it to the kids. And then Nanette goes, "Do you?" Yeah, actually, I'm going to move on a little further. Hold on, guys. Nanette says, but nevertheless, you indicated to him that you had some medical issues. Erin says, yeah, medical issues, medical stuff to talk about, correct. Nanette says, did you tell him you wanted some advice on that medical stuff, issues, things? Erin says, no, I wasn't after advice, no. Nanette says, I asked you about whether you told Simon you were inviting his parents, Heather and Ian, and him to lunch to discuss that topic. And Erin says, you did ask me that. And they say here, is it your evidence that the topic is about medical issues or things? And Erin says, yeah, but I think maybe you and I are getting stuck is, I did not want to discuss medical stuff. I know, she says, I did want to discuss some medical stuff, but that was not why I invited them. So when you say I invited them to discuss it, I did not invite them to discuss it. It was not the purpose. And they say here, your evidence is that in passing, you mentioned to Simon that you wanted to discuss the topic with the broader group. Erin says, I feel like every time you put it to me, you use slightly different words, which makes it hard. but I said to him there was some medical stuff or medical issues I wanted to talk about. And then she says that maybe we could talk. I can't remember the precise words, but all I can tell you is that it was not why I was inviting him. It was not why I was inviting anybody. Nanette says, okay, I get that. But my question is, did you tell Simon at some point on the 16th of July that these medical issues or stuff were things that you wanted to discuss at the lunch? Um, and then Nanette says, forget the purpose of the lunch. And then Erin says, no, no, I'm off that now. I understand what you're asking, but my memory is that I said something to him like, there's some medical stuff I'll talk to you about then, something like that. And they say here, and you say you did not say or ask, for advice on how to break things to the kids. Erin says, no, no, I didn't say that. And they say here, so I was asking you about the question in the phrase, in light of the issues in the second line of that message. Erin says, yes. And she says, Nanette Rogers says, I suggest that this is a direct reference by you to some medical issues. And Erin says, it's quite clearly a reference to medical issues. Yes, quite clearly. Nanette says, I want to ask you about the third line. Because I wanted it to be a special meal, as I may not be able to host a lunch like this again for some time. Erin says, correct? Nanette says, so, my question is, that is also a reference to medical issues. And Erin says, yeah, I think I'd agree with that, yes. Nanette says, I suggest to you that on the 16th of July 2023 that you lied to Simon saying that you had some medical issues to discuss, correct or incorrect. Erin says, no, that wasn't a lie. In the blue message in your response to Simon on the 28th of July, you wrote, it's important to me that you're all there tomorrow and that I can have the conversations that I need to have. Erin says, I did write that. Nanette says, is that a reference to the medical issues you were confronting? Erin says, it is it is a reference to the medical things, yes. Nanette says, but you weren't confronting any medical issues, were you? And Erin says, yeah, no, I think I was, yeah. And Nanette goes, well, what were they? And she says, I was going to have surgery soon. Nanette says, what surgery? And she says, the gastric bypass surgery. Nanette says, and had that appointment been booked in? Erin says, I had an appointment for early September, yes. They ask her, with what clinic or hospital or doctor, with who? And it says the Enrich Clinic in Melbourne. And Nanette asks her, what was the date of that appointment? Erin says, I don't remember the exact date. I don't think it was an appointment for surgery itself, but it was like a pre-surgery appointment, if that makes sense. Yeah. Nanette Rogers says, I suggest to you that you wanted Simon to come to the lunch so that you could feed him part of the poisoned beef Wellington meal. Erin says that's not true. Nanette says, I suggest you prepared a poisoned beef Wellington for him just in case he turned up at midday or shortly after midday on the 29th of July. Erin says that's not true. And and they say, and when he didn't show up for lunch at some stage, you threw it in your rubbish bin. Erin says, I did put the pastry and the mushrooms in the bin. Yes, I did. And Nanette Rogers says, Simon's evidence was that it was very rare for you to invite people to your home. You heard him give that evidence. Erin says, yeah, I did. And they say, it was rare, wasn't it? And Erin replies, I don't think that's something Simon could comment on. We haven't lived together for 8 years. So there you go. So the next bit is all right. So they ask her about this message here. Nanette Rogers says, "I want to talk about the issue of foraging. You'll remember yesterday when I said I'd come back to an issue, and they say you gave evidence about a discussion that you and Simon had at Monash on the 1st of August 2023 on the Tuesday." Erin says, "Yes." And you said that Simon said to you after the conversation about the dehydrator, "Is that how you poisoned my parents using that dehydrator?" And you said in your evidence, I said, "No, of course not." Erin says, "I remember that." And they say here, Nanette Rogers says, "You remember the evidence you gave. Now you are asked these questions. Then you were asked these questions. Did that comment by Simon cause you to reflect on what might have been in that meal?" And Erin answered, "It caused me to do a lot of thinking about a lot of things, yeah. And that was your evidence?" Erin replies, "Yes, it was." So after that question, Nanette Rogers asked her to explain what actually crossed her mind when Simon said that to her, right? And this is the answer that Erin gave. So hold on. Basically, she says, "It got me thinking about all the times I had used the dehydrator, um, and how I had dried forage mushrooms in it in weeks earlier. And I started to think, what if they'd gone in the container with the Chinese mushrooms? Maybe that's what happened. I was thinking maybe how that's," she's, yeah, basically said that's how that happened. And they said, "How did that make you feel?" She said, "Scared, responsible, really worried because child protection were involved. And Simon seemed to be of the mind that maybe this was intentional. And I just got really scared." All right, let's move down a bit. They say you heard in the cross exam of Simon Patterson that he denied um, ever saying such a thing to you about using the dehydrator to poison your parents. You heard him give that evidence. And she says, "I did. But of course, your evidence is that you say he did say that to you." And she says, "Correct." And Nanette says, "You say that this, in effect, is the first time that you realize forage mushrooms might have been in the Tupperware container that you used for the beef Wellington." Erin says, "That is correct." Nanette Rogers says, "Is that a fair assessment of your evidence?" And she says, "It is." Nanette says, "You agreed with me yesterday that you knew by at least 2:30 p.m. on Sunday, the 30th of July, 2023, that Don and Gail were sick." Erin replies, "Yes." And that was from a conversation with Simon. And she replies, "Correct." "I also suggested to you yesterday that you knew Heather and Ian were sick, but you denied that." Erin says, "That is correct too." Yeah, let me see here. They say here, "In your record of interview on the 5th of August 2023, you told police that you loved Don and Gail, correct?" She says, "Correct." "Your evidence is that you realized on the Tuesday, the 1st of August, that the forage mushrooms might have been in the Tupperware container and then put them in the beef Wellington. Is that correct?" And Erin says, "Yep." She says, "I started thinking later that day that that was a possibility, yes." They ask her again, "On Tuesday, the 1st of August?" And she says, "Yes." All right. They say here, and in the cross examination, Simon Patterson said they loved Erin, and you seem to love them. You heard him say that. Erin said, "I did hear him say that." They ask, "Is that a fair assessment?" Erin says, "They did love me, and I did love them. I do love them." He also said that there was some conflict in your relationship around October 2022. He said there was a lot of tension in your relationship. Um, a lot of tension in your relationship with them, meaning Don and Gail, I'm guessing. And he said, "Did you hear him say that?" And Aaron says, "I remember him referring to tension." And then, yeah, they move on. They say here, uh, Katrina Cripps, the child protection worker, gave evidence that you told her on the 1st of August 2023 that you loved Don and Gail. She says correct. And that you said that to her. Erin replies again, yes. And that you had a good relationship with them up until recently. Did you tell Katrina Cripps that? Um, and they just basically say, "Oh, sorry guys." Erin replies, "I had a good relationship with them. Yeah." And they said, yeah, let me move down a bit. All right. All right, I'll move. They ask Erin here, Dr. Nanette Rogers says, "I suggest to you that at no time in the phone conversation of July 30, 2023 with Simon, that you ever asked how Don and Gail were, agree or disagree." Erin says disagree. "Did you ever ask Simon how Don was going?" Erin says yes. Nanette says, "I suggest you didn't." Do you disagree? Erin says yes. "I suggest that you never asked how Gail was going. Do you disagree? Erin says correct. "I suggest you never asked how Ian was going. Do you disagree?" Erin says correct. "I suggest to you that you never asked how Heather was going, and I assume you disagree." Erin says, "I correct. I disagree." Now, no. Yeah, I think we're just about done, guys. All right. Yeah, a little bit more. So they're asking her about the digital records from a computer found in her home, and I want to bring it up here. All right. They say there has been evidence given in this trial that there were records from a black Cooler Master computer that suggested you had accessed the iNaturalist map of death cap mushrooms. Erin says yes. Um, by applying a keyword search after, so they're talking about Shaman Fox Henry's evidence here. And they say by applying a keyword search after his software had finished processing it, the keywords were death cap mushroom, death cap mushrooms, mushrooms, and poison. Erin says he did. They ask her, do you remember him giving this evidence? She says, I do. And they say, Nanette says he supplied this information to investigators who looked at the data and tagged the items of interest, and they supplied a report. He supplied a report. Do you remember that? Erin says, I do. They now say they want to take her to a part of that evidence, and they ask her if she can read that. And Nanette says, at 7:20, I suggest you use the Bing search engine to look up iNaturalist as depicted in the record. And she says, it does look like somebody did that. Erin replies, it does look like somebody did that, yes. Nanette Rogers says, I suggest that person was you, correct or incorrect? Erin replies, I don't remember doing it. It's possible it was me. The only thing that gives me cause is I didn't use Internet Explorer for Bing, but I accept that maybe I did this time. I'm not sure. And Nanette says, I suggest that it was you. Erin says, it's possible it was me, yes. Nanette says, I suggest that you were not randomly browsing the internet. Disagree, agree or disagree? Erin says, I don't know what I was doing before this. Nanette says, I suggest you knew what website you were looking for. Agree or disagree? Erin says, I can't say that because I don't remember this. Nanette Rogers says, I suggest you knew what search term to enter to find iNaturalist. Agree or disagree? Erin says, I don't know. Next question is, I suggest that you had used iNaturalist before the 28th of May 2022. Erin says, I don't remember using it this time. Nanette says, I suggest you had used iNaturalist before this date in May of 2022, and that allowed you to navigate to the iNaturalist website. Agree or disagree? Erin says, I don't know. They say, I suggest to you that the website in December 2024, which is what this purports to be from Detective Stephen Eppingstall's evidence, she says, I suggest to you that this December 2024 world map looked fairly similar to the one you looked at in May 2022. Agree or disagree? Erin says, I can't comment on that. Nanette says, why is it that you can't comment? Erin replies, I don't remember this activity, and if I don't remember this activity, I can't remember what each website looked like 3 years ago. And then they say they're looking at another record, a different one at 7:23:03. Nanette says, I suggest you then navigated to a further page containing observations on iNaturalist. Is it your evidence that you can't remember doing this? Erin says, I can't remember doing it, but it is possible. But can I, she asks here, Erin says, can I just make one comment? You asked me earlier, you suggested to me or put it to me that this was not the first time that I'd done this, but it looks like the computer record says it was the first time. Nanette Rogers replied, well, I didn't suggest it to you. I asked you if it was the first time or had you done it previously? And Erin replies, oh, okay. I thought it was stronger than that, that you were putting it to me that I had. And they say, they're talking about a web page of observations for death cap mushrooms in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. And they say that's what it appears to say. Erin says, I can just see lots of numbers in the URL. And they say here, Nanette says, at 7:23:16 seconds to 7:23:18 seconds, you navigated to a specific post on iNaturalist website featuring a sighting of death cap mushrooms in Bricker Reserve in Moorabbin on the 18th of May 2022. She says, I see that. Do you agree that you navigated to that specific post? Erin says, I agree it's possible. Nanette Rogers says, I suggest that the observation pages that I have just taken you to, the World page and the Melbourne Victoria page, were seconds before related to death cap mushroom observations. And she says, yes, I'm not sure how long before it was, but okay. And they say here, I suggest that the website in 2024 looks similar to what you looked at in May 2022. And they say, I assume you disagree with that because you've got no memory of it. Erin says, it's not that I disagree, it's that I don't know. I don't know if it looks similar. Nanette Rogers says, because you can't remember whether you went there or not. Erin replies, I can't remember this specific interaction, correct. Nanette says, I suggest that these 2 pages on iNaturalist website in December 24 look very similar to what you looked at in May 2022 concerning a sighting of death cap mushrooms in Bricker Reserve, Moorabbin on the 18th of May 2022. Agree or disagree? Erin says, it's possible. I don't know. And they say, Nanette Rogers says, I suggest it was you who used your Cooler Master. It was you who used the Cooler Master computer to navigate or search the iNaturalist website. Agree or disagree? Erin says it's possible. Yeah. And it wasn't your son? Erin says I don't know. And not your daughter? Erin says I don't know. Nanette Rogers says, I suggest you had an interest in death cap mushrooms on the 28th of May 2022. Agree or disagree? Erin says, it depends what you mean by an interest. And that was the last bit we got today. That was the last question until Tuesday. So that was the very, very last bit from Nanette Rogers for the Hey my friend. Hey Aussie Trisha. Aussie Trisha said, appreciate you censoring yourself. It's clearly hard. Sad I missed the rant last night. You've had a rotten time this past week and beyond. Thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it. I know it has been a hard week. It's not been an easy one this week. Um, having my wife in the hospital, falling and cracking my head open on the bloody TV, the trial, long hours, doing like multiple shows throughout the week and different channels and different this and different that, having to write all the notes for this takes hours to write all these notes, guys. The stuff that we write down during the day, you have to write so quickly because it's like as if I'm talking to you right now and you're having to type. There's no time to edit because you're just trying to get the information correct, right? um then later on in the day, you can sit down and start editing out all your notes because some of the information you're hearing is unreportable or like whatever. There's a bunch of different things that you have to be cautious of. And that takes hours of editing to bring you these shows that you see. And I'm glad there's some people who really appreciate it. It's not easy work. It's long hours, a lot of bloody editing on Word and stuff. It's which I'm really bad at. I'm terrible at Word. I'm not a person who's very adept at Microsoft Word. I really suck at it, and it's a pain in the butt for me. Uh, Aussie Tad said I lived about 45 minutes from Leongatha, but Mum still lives there. Oh, really? I didn't know that. Julie Miller says, great work, Ping. That wasn't easy. That was a hard one. The one from yesterday and today, there was just a lot of stuff in there. A lot of stuff to get through. Hey, Betty C, how are you? Yeah, so I'm sorry if anyone was offended when I yelled yesterday, but I hope we're all on the same page now. Oh, yeah. It's all right. I think we've sorted it now. Now we get this. Now you guys get this when we start the show. Oh, God, this thing is silly. Yeah, now you guys get this. You get the warning thing now. When we start the show, you get this now about subjudice contempt. You now get this new message every time we do a Erin Patterson live show, so people can read it and sort of get an understanding of what subjudice contempt actually is. So it gives you a bit of information there and explains it, so I don't always have to stop the show and tell you what's going on about with that subject. So, um, yeah, I think we're just about done. That was it. Thank you. I appreciate it. I want to do a voiceover for it. I recorded one last night, but it doesn't flow correctly. I don't like it. So I'll do another one soon. So when that video plays, you'll get a little voiceover from Ping telling you some of the details about subjudice and like the type of penalties and things like that. I- in the Supreme Court in Melbourne, in Victoria, there is no cap on a penalty. Like, that's not a joke. It's for real. There is no cap on a penalty for subjudice contempt in the Supreme Court. I think in county magistrate, there's like different penalties, like 20 units and something like that. But the Supreme Court, there is no cap. A judge could sentence you to $10 billion fine and 9,000 years in jail if he wanted to, or she wanted to. They could do whatever they wanted. There's no guidelines, there's no sentencing recommendation, there's nothing. It's whatever the judge feels that you have done or damaged to the trial. So if you caused a mistrial, I think you'd be getting 10 years in jail. It's crazy. Yeah, I'll show you. In Victoria, uh, see, it says here, although the penalty for contempt includes, at least in theory, imprisonment for life. Yeah, imprisonment for life. Um, it can be as low as 2 years imprisonment and 240 penalty units, but it can be a lot more too. Yeah, it's basically unlimited, I think. So yeah, they're not playing. They don't want their trials being polluted, people. That's why when we do this kind of information, it has to be very, very specific. Very, very like the facts. What was said in front of the jury is what you hear. That's it. There's no commentary, there's no opinion, there's no anything else. It's just the facts of what happened in front of the court. That's it. So when we when we get out of trial and there's either a verdict or whatever, we can do more of those type of things. We can do more. Yeah. So we can do more of that type of stuff. Hey Zen, how are you, my friend? You had a nana nap? Okay. That's okay. You can have a nana nap. Betty says, I do like the USA free to discuss, but it does have its downfalls. Yeah, I'm sure it does. I mean, you look at America and they have things like Court TV that are covering live trials with 20,000 people watching and a live chat open and like every comment under the sun. In Australia, you don't get any of that. Nothing. We do the job of like court TV. We bring you those details, but there's no anything else. It's like that's what the court reporter's job is to do. We bring you the information from the trial because we're sort of trusted to do that for you. And that's how it works here. So Carolina says, does that rule go before trial when someone is just charged? I think it's only when I don't know. That's a good question. I'm going to ask the Supreme Court on Tuesday. I'll ask the question for you. I would have thought it was only when the trial is live, but yeah, I think it's only when the jury is sitting. So only when the jury has become impaneled, I think that's when the subjudice starts applying, because that's when the trial gets underway. I think that's correct. I don't think it applies to pre-trial unless there's a few other things, like there's things like suppression orders and non-reportable and things like that. So a lot of pre-trial in Victoria is unreportable. So there was probably court cases. I don't know. I wasn't there, but there's probably court cases dating back a year or two with the trial, but they're unreportable. So none of it was in the media. No one knows anything about it because it's protected until it goes to trial. So I would say as soon as the jury becomes impaneled, um, or like that day, whatever the first day of the trial is, that is when it kicks in. And as soon as you're on that day, everyone's under, watch. Everyone's up. The rule applies to everyone, all the media. So that would be my interpretation. So all right, I think I'm going to get out of here. By the way, very sad news about that Phoebe Bishop thing. The fact that they have found her body, but at least they can return her to her mum, right? Human remains found in the search for Phoebe Bishop's body. It's moved very quickly over the 24 hours. Like, it was only 24 hours ago that we heard that the roommates have been arrested. Now we hear this. So, I'm sure tomorrow I'll be able to tell you a bit more about it, and we'll have a chat about it. Tomorrow night, I'm live on Web Sleuths Live at 10:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking about the Laurie Vallow trial and other things too. I'm sure me and Trish will talk about all sorts of ADHD type nonsense tomorrow night. And then after that, I'll be doing my live show, catching up on all the USA uh, true crime that I've missed while being at trial every day. So we'll catch up on a bunch of stories and stuff that we haven't been able to do, and um, updates about things. Alyssa Petrov and the three kids that were found killed, unfortunately, and their fathers on the run. We'll do a whole bunch of catching up of things that we haven't been able to do. So, hey, I love you all. Have a great rest of your Friday. Please be careful out there, um, especially if you're in Melbourne. It's really windy and rainy outside. Have a great long weekend if you're in Victoria. If you're a Erin Patterson trial watcher and you're not coming back until Tuesday, like, you don't want to watch the other stuff, I will see you on Tuesday evening for your day 29. Day 29. I'll see you on Tuesday for day 29 of the trial. I have a great weekend for all of you, for those people who are trial watchers. Hey, my friend, how are you? I haven't seen you in ages. How are you going, my friend? Hey, love is a four-letter word. Good to see you. Carolina says, see you on Web Sleuths. Yep, I'll be on Web Sleuths tomorrow night, at 10:30 Eastern. So, which I think is 9:30 Central, something like that. I can never remember. Same in Adelaide, awful weather. Yeah, it's very wintry weather here. Hey, my friend, how you been? How you been? Hope you've been doing well. Haven't seen you in like over a month, maybe 2 months. I hope you're doing really well, my friend. Come catch up with me tomorrow night. I'll be on at a more normal time, okay? Come back tomorrow night at like midnight Eastern, and I'll have a normal show for you, okay? You in the hospital? I told you, Blaze. Yeah, I told you. It was about those dill pickle bowls, wasn't it? Didn't I tell you last weekend, Blaze? I told you about them. I told you. I hope that's not what caused you to be in hospital, my friend. Hope you get better. Hospital's horrible. I've been having to catch cabs to and from the hospital like every bloody day. It's like, because like the hospital is quite far away where Mrs. Ping is, and I have to, like, sometimes I can't catch the train because it's too late, so I have to catch a bloody cab, come all the way back, blah blah blah. It's just, they should build a hospital right next to my house. I don't know why they're so far away. I think this is a planning issue. I think I have to contact the government, maybe. I'm glad I could make you laugh in hospital, my friend. I'm sorry you're in hospital. As someone whose wife is in hospital right now, she's been in for a week now. I know it's not nice. It's not nice being in there. She hates it too. She's like, "When can I come home?" And I'm like, "Not yet, girl. Not yet." What? Hold on, guys. Sorry, that was my that you know what's really weird about that? That was my cab driver from yesterday. I met this really nice guy, this cab driver, and he just messaged me saying, "Hey, how are you?" He's like, Do you need to go to the hospital today?" He's like, I'm doing my shift or whatever." He's like, "I can come and get you if you need me." He's a really nice guy. His name is Viv, and he works in Melbourne during the day somewhere, and then he drives cabs at night. And he's like the nicest guy. And we had a good conversation on the way home yesterday. And then he just messaged me now. He's like, "Did you go to the hospital today?" He's like, "Do you need me to take you home?" It was so nice of him to message. Um, Blaze says, "Thank you. Yes, miserable. I hope she feels better. My family is back and forth too." Yeah, I know. I know, it sucks. We've sort of got, like, rotating people who are going because Ping needs a break. Like, I wish I could go every single night and that, but it's almost like, not being that it's not close, it's sort of it just burns you out having to travel, like, 40 minutes each way to the hospital. I mean, I would do anything for her, anything, but I gotta get some sleep at some point. I gotta have a day off at one time. So, so that's what happened to the other night. We didn't end up going because she was too sedated, and the hospital was like, "Don't come." They're like, "She's so out of it, it's not worth it." Like she's sleeping basically, and they wanted her to get some rest. And that she's like, "Oh, she gets overexcited when you show up, and she wants to move around and she wants to hug you." And so they're like, she gets excited, and they're like, "We need her to stay still. We need her to stop moving around so much." So yeah, he is a proactive driver. Yeah, he's really nice though. He's yeah. I know it sucks. It's just crap. I don't know. I hope this is sort of like we already got 1 week in the books. I'm sure even with my busted eye, I probably still seem better than I did last Friday. Last Friday, I was a mess, guys. I was beside myself. I was not okay. I probably shouldn't have done a live show. I don't know why I did. I think I needed something to distract me, and I was like, "I'll just do a live show." But I shouldn't have done it. I don't think that was a good idea. But yeah. Look, the update, if you want the update, is it's slow, guys. It's really slow. I thought it was going to be maybe a bit faster than this, but she's not that much different from Saturday last week. It's very slow progress. And look, she got out of bed. She walked a little bit. That's good. She walked down the little corridor for a little bit. Had to have a nurse follow her with like the machine because she can't like pull the machine at the moment. So she had to do that. And I don't know. It just sucks seeing someone like that sick that you love, and you can't do anything about it. That's the hardest thing. It's like you would do anything to change it, but you can't. And no matter how much whatever, it doesn't do anything. The only thing that will help is time, medication, doctors. That's it. And that's the hardest thing, is not being able to intervene and fix it for them. That's what it is. Yeah, that's I to me, I reckon that's the hardest thing. And loads of rest. Yeah. I don't think she's going to be doing anything for quite a while. The doctor said she won't be able to drive for a couple of months after the surgery. So she's not going to be driving. She won't be going anywhere. Even when she does eventually get released and be able to go home, like she's just going to be at home for a couple of months, most likely, because the recovery's long. Like she has to learn how to eat again. She has to put on like muscle and stuff, and it's a very 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 slow process. So yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, it's very hard. She's far too young to be this sick, this ill, and it sucks. But anyway, enough of my problems. I love you all, Aussie Trisha. Thank you so much. It still makes me laugh, that message. I'm sorry I missed the rant last night. Yeah, it's been one of those weeks, I promise. It's just been one. I still can't believe I cracked my head open on my own bloody TV. How does that work? I've never ever had an injury like this since I was a teenager in 25 years, and just this week did it to me. So, she's got a lot of people for support, and there's many people that visit, and like we're trying to keep it to just certain people at the moment because of like the infection risk and stuff like that. But when she's a bit better and her scars have healed a bit more and stuff, we'll invite like wider friends and family and stuff. Yeah, so she's doing all right. I think her grandma's going to go visit her tomorrow, and the other grandma. So she's got two. So one has been like every 2 days. One of her nanas has been going up there every 2 days. The other one lives a little further away, so she's going to go up there and see her tomorrow, I think, with her mum. So Aussie Trisha said you were overtired that night. Yeah. Carolina says I'm going to go back and watch last night. There is a live stream from last night, but it's not Erin Patterson related. It is Phoebe Bishop related. So Betty says the grandmas are the best. They are the best. That's right. All right. I'm gonna get out of here. By the way, thanks to all the nice people who have helped. Kathy, who sent some money for flowers for Mrs. Ping. That's very nice. I will buy some flowers for her. To Squinting Cat, thank you so much. To Sean, my friend, that's very kind of you guys. To the people who watch this on the replay crew, just because you watch on the replay crew doesn't mean you can't help out. Those links are underneath the channel. The subscription button is somewhere around here, and that thumbs up button, I know it migrates around YouTube every now and then, but it's somewhere under the video here. All those things help support the channel and help me go to these trials. So if you could help me out, I'd appreciate it, because these trials are bloody lengthy. They're bloody lengthy. They're like 2 months of my life that I have to go somewhere for like all day between, like, I have to get up at 5 and then I get back at like six or something. It's crazy. It's like a 9-hour day just in trial. And then you have to make all the content for you guys. So if you appreciate it, one of those options, if you could do one of them for me, either the donation links here, the subscription button somewhere under here, and the thumbs up one, if you could pick one of those, I would appreciate it. And I'll see you all tomorrow, 10:30 Eastern, for Web Sleuths Live. Ping and Trisha. I don't think we've done that in maybe 2 years. So that'll be like a old throwback episode to back in the day. That'll be fun. That'll be fun. Come watch me and Trish talk about Laurie Vallow. And we always have a hoot when we talk about Laurie Vallow. Me and Trish go off. We start cackling like a bunch of schoolgirls. So that'll be interesting. So come come and watch that. I also did a live stream today with Ninchi True Crime. If you haven't watched that, you can head over to Ninchi True Crime channel and see the one we did on Phoebe Bishop this afternoon. So you could check that out too. Or you could check out the 2 live streams I've done on this channel today for Erin Patterson. Uh, that's a lot of content. It's a lot of content in one day. I love you all. I'll see you later. You guys are amazing. I miss all my regulars. I got to see Danny briefly today in the chat. That was cool. And I'll see you tomorrow at 10:30 Eastern, all right? Good night, everyone. Have a great Friday out there. If you're in Australia, have a great rest of your Friday evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.